Okay, let's start with who I actually am. So I'm working as a game designer. I've done this job for 5 years now, but I've been in the industry for about 8 years. So back when I started, there were no game studies in Finland basically at all. Nowadays it's a bit different, so you can actually study to become a game designer, to become someone else in the games industry. But back then it was just that if you were interested in games, you could get into the industry and continue from there. So for the first 2 years I was testing games. That was back in the day before an iPhone. So we had like hundreds of Nokia phones and Ericsson phones and just played games and those to make sure that the games actually work like they should. Then about the company I work for. We have an independent game studio based in Tampere, Finland. We have 14 people right now. And I listed some of the positions just to show you that we don't only have like programmers and artists. We have lots of different kinds of people that make it possible to actually create games. So social media people, naturally, because none of us actually working on the game remember to post anything on Facebook. That's impossible. Then we have a QA manager who's in charge of all of the testing, because once again we didn't have the time to do it without actually hiring someone to do this thing. We specialize in simulation games, and simulation games, they do range from really light simulation, like maybe you could call Farmville on Facebook a simulation game. It's about farming. You have your own simulated farm, and then all the way to like Microsoft Flight Simulator. So realistic flying simulation that's not so much a game as it is a simulation. But simulation games can be kind of anything between those two, from really casual, tiny games all the way to heavyweight simulations. We have done 3 games so far, so Cities in Motion and Cities in Motion 2. Those were about, the player's task was to create functioning public transportation networks in existing cities. So we gave the players ready-made cities with traffic happening in the cities and ways to actually know where the people were going. Like, this is where the people live, this is where they work, make sure that they can get there. And while Cities in Motion was kind of more on the heavy side of simulation, it's not as realistic, it's more game-like, it's supposed to be fun and not a real job like a traffic planner. But for the newest title, Is Skylines, we went more to the casual simulation side. So Skylines is a more casual city building game where instead of having a ready-made city, the player has to build their own cities. And let's go on to Skylines. So old school city builder game in the spirit of SimCity games. So what this basically means is that the player has a plot of land, and then they are told, like, build a city. And how people usually play this game is that they have an idea in their head, like, this is the kind of city I want to create. Then they pick up the game, play it, and try to create this city that they are thinking of. So they might play it as the worst mayor ever, who only does bad things and no one likes to live in the city. That's okay. Or they might want to create the kind of utopian city with only green energy, lots of bike lanes, all of this. So the game is a sandbox tool for players to express their creativity. It's all about what kind of cities you want to build. We have the first expansion out. It brings to the game a day and night cycle, because when the game was released, we just simply didn't have the time to do a day and night cycle, so we added it later as a free update to all of the players. And it seems like this was the game that the players were really kind of waiting for. This was something that they really wanted. So what is Skylines about? This list tries to show what I think is the core of the game, the things that the players like the most, why they choose this game over other games. So huge maps, because playing in a tiny sandbox is not fun. You need to have a huge sandbox with lots of toys in it, and then you can have fun. And then you can create more things, because with a tiny amount of land, a tiny sandbox, you don't have as many options. Single-player offline experience. What this basically means is that when you build your own city, no one else comes in and messes it. So you can just handle your own city, you can create what you want, you don't have to think about anyone else. We do have tools for sharing cities, like people can share their saved games if they want to, or they can download someone else's save and then continue from that. But when you are playing the game, you don't have anyone else coming in your own city, or you don't have to travel anywhere in the game. And the main point for this presentation is that we have what I call living cities. So what we only wanted to make was that when the player is creating the city, it becomes kind of like a living entity, so that they feel that there is something happening in the city, there are actual people living in there, and they have a motivation to actually respond to the needs of the city. So it had to feel alive, there had to be things happening, and also for this kind of a game, when it is a simulation game, some part of the play is just waiting. The player is waiting for money to accumulate so that they can do the next part of the railway system or things like this. So they need to have things to look at. Cities are fun. If they have life in them, people can just look at cities and enjoy that. Modding. That means that players are able to modify the game if they want to. We created tools for them to create additional content, all the way from just, for example, choosing a plot, creating a park with the 3D models that the game already has. Then they can save that and use it in the game. So if they want to create, for example, a park from their own neighborhood, they could do that and then use it in the game instantly. But it also allows for larger mods, so tweaking the AI, making the traffic behave differently, creating all new buildings, and importing your own 3D models into the game. And lots of ways of making the game your own, bringing in the elements that the players want, and kind of as a continuation of the creativity and self-expression that the playing of the game is that you can also modify it. And the beautiful part is that all of the modifications can be shared online through Steam Workshop. So it's really easy for the player to create something, then with a few clicks they can share this with all of the other players, and the others can download these. And they also have a rating system. So if someone does intersection and it's working really badly, people get downvoted and others are not as likely to see that one. So what Steam is offering us is that we don't have to moderate the content. Sharing is easy. Players don't have to go to a website, download something and place it in the right folder. It's all automatic. And that's really good for this kind of a game. I have a few videos for you. I think we could check out the first one. So this one is basically showing what kind of things you can do in the game. Let's see if it wants to come up. So this is made by a player, a fan. It's not by us. So this is a time lapse of a city that a player has built, and then they are basically rewinding the tape, kind of showing how the city grows, then taking it back. So a timeline of how something is created and how it grows organically. So this is really sped up. So usually when playing the game, things are not this fast. But this is also kind of something that the players love to do. It's a game about creativity, making your own cities, making your own videos and sharing them too. So all of this plays into the creativity aspect and expressing yourself. So you can make huge cities. There's lots of traffic happening, and this is the beauty of Skylines. So we can go back to the slide, and we could take a look at the second video. It's on the other tab in the browser. Yes, that one. Nope, the yellow one. Yes, so the Tsunami video. So creativity. We have dynamic water in the game. So what this means is that the water actually has a mass, it has a direction, and it flows like real water should. And players love this. So what this player has done is that they have placed huge dams on top of the city, then used the ground that has been exposed when the water levels go down, built a city on that area, and now they want to remove the dams and see what happens. Because, well, why not? You can do it, so you should. And we actually had a really amazing message from one of the users of the game who told us that they had been shopping for a house. They wanted to buy a house, and they were playing Skylines. So what they did, they had imported the terrain of the area where they were looking for the house. And when they put it into the game, they saw that the area was well below the water level, so that the first flood that might come, and that this was an area that is prone to flooding, so the house that they were looking for would have been left underwater like instantly. So they chose a different house. But all of these kind of weird things that you can do with this kind of a game. So now the water is flowing into the city. And this is also, because it's a game, we don't actually have modeling for anything to be destroyed. The houses are just saying, like, there is a lot of water here, we might move out. But players like this kind of stuff. And the water is really realistic, and it flows just like it should. It's maybe not a big thing for the player if it's flowing like it should, but it is working nicely, and it gives an extra dimension to the game when you can actually guide the water and do this kind of crazy stuff. So let's go back to the presentation. Good. So cities are alive. So these were the kind of problems that we had, or the questions that we asked ourselves when creating the game. Because we knew that we want to have the cities feel alive. They have to be functioning and look like something is really happening. So how can we provide the player with the feeling that this is a real city in order to motivate them to actually do things in the city? Because just having a simulation running and simulation saying that you need to press button 1, then you press button 1, things are okay, that's not fun. So you needed some kind of a motivation, and this is where the living city is coming. So how can we simulate the city so that it feels alive? We can't simulate everything because the game has to run on low-end machines, so we need to prioritize something. How can we do it? And because it's a simulation game, we know that we will have large amounts of data of the game that we need to somehow show to the player without overwhelming them. And we have to take into account that some of the players have played lots of this kind of games. They know exactly what's going on, and others might just be really new to this game genre altogether. So the data visualization has to work for both of those players. So simulation games are special. What this means is that there is so much data that we have to show the player. Like in order to make educated choices, to have goals, to achieve those goals, the player has to know what's happening in the city and why. They have to have tools so that when they see something going on, they know that this is where I will get more information about what's going on and how to fix this problem. And since we had the target audience of experienced city builder players and the newcomers, we needed to make sure that the data is visualized in a way that most people can easily come into the game and understand what's going on without having to first learn lots of things and to kind of play the game for hours before understanding what's going on. So what we did was sliders, colors, and words. If we could avoid using numbers, we always did. Because the basic example I usually use is that if you start a new game, you get a sword, and the sword says that it does 10 damage. So is it a good sword? Is it a bad one? You don't know. If you don't know how much 10 damage is in that game, you can't know how good or bad the sword is. So if you instead have a slider and you show that the sword is like this far in the slider, then you instantly know what it is compared to other swords in the game, how much damage that is. So that's why sliders, visualization, or words like this is an excellent sword or this is a bad sword, then you can instantly communicate to the player what this is in relation to other values. So this was really important for the newcomers to the genre. And also, since we actually have the numbers running in the background, so for the people who really want to go deep into the game and min-max everything, they could get on to the actual numbers if they wanted to. So the game has to work with just the top level, so when you just basically open the game and look around, you need to be somehow able to see if something is wrong, if something needs attention, but you need to be able to go really deep into the information if you want to. So what kind of things we did to make the city really alive? I think I'm soon running out of time, but let's go through a few more slides. So citizens with character. So that the tiny people that you see in the city actually feel like they are someone. They are not just a 3D model, but they have names, they have workplaces, they have homes and families. So for us, this was really important because what most players do when they have time to wait, they will click on one of the people in the city and follow them around. So they want to see how the citizens are moving around, if the system makes any sense, because they will immediately look for the system to be somehow sensible, like people coming to work in the mornings, going back home, and kind of all of these things add depth and livelihood to the actual citizens. So, of course, when talking about cities, you will have traffic. So different types of vehicles. Just having two models of cars and having those endlessly on the roads doesn't look like a real city. So we have different kinds. And this is also a way to tell to the player what kind of traffic is on the roads. So if they have lots of big trucks, they know that they have raw materials or goods that are being sent somewhere or coming into the city. So they might know that I need some kind of a way to transport the goods and raw materials without using trucks. So they might go for trains or ships to make sure that the roads are free for other use if they have traffic jams with lots of trucks. And then if you have lots of just normal cars, you know that people are possibly traveling to work or to leisure locations. And once again, you can then have a bus line if the roads are a bit crowded. So that's why we have public transportation. So trains, buses, ships, and metros. Lots of different types, because these are something that really appeal to the players. they want to be able to help the citizens get where they are going. So they want to create bus lines and metro lines and see how the citizens are using these. So it's visually pleasing, and it also adds functionality to the game that the players like to use. Then just having some kind of visual variation, signs, traffic lights, idle animations, so that the people don't just stand there and they're actually doing something when they're waiting for the bus. So all of these things that add some movement, color, variation to the city. And we also have game world brands. What this means is that you might see an advertisement on the wall about something, and then you might encounter this later, like there's a truck with the same logo, or a citizen has a T-shirt with the same logo. So that these are kind of recognizable, that players know that this is the game, this is the brand, and it's repeating in the city, as real cities actually use brands this way. So also kind of having different kinds of areas in the game. So you can have a city that has different areas, not just this one mass of buildings. And what we kind of deducted from all of this is that if you can use the game to create a city that represents something of the real world, it's close to a real world city, then you can also make sure that you have nice fictional cities generated by the game. So it is tied to the same system, and it's an easy way to actually test if we have enough variation, if things are working as they should, if we can create real world cities with the game. Let's take this one still, and then I'll stop. So technically, we can't simulate everything because the game has to run on low-end computers. So we had to choose what kind of things were the most important. And basically the things listed on the last slide, those were the ones. So and also because usually when you walk around the city, you look at things and most of the details are on the street level, because that's where people can actually see those. You wouldn't put an advert on top of a building if no one can see it. But with the game it's different, because we know that players play it from a God perspective. They are coming from top down, looking at the city. So we had to have most of the detail actually on top of the buildings to make sure that the player actually sees something. So this is kind of a backwards situation, but it created interesting challenges, and that's why we have a lot of signs that can be put on top of the buildings, chimneys, satellite dishes, all of this, whatever we came up with that can be used for variation in the buildings. So while we can have cities with up to 1 million citizens living in them, we can simultaneously simulate 67,000 agents. So this means that 67,000 items can be moving in the city, vehicles or citizens at one time. So while we might have lists of all the 1 million citizens, all their names, their houses and all of this, at one time you can see in the city moving only 67,000 individuals. So this was actually a hard-coded limit with the engine we were using, but we did some testing and it seems to work really well with the scale that we are going for. So even with a tiny fraction of all of the inhabitants of a city, you can make it feel really alive and have things happening, have interesting things to look at. So I think I will end here. Let's see if I can get my last slide. So thank you.
Thank you, Karoliina. Tell us a little bit more about the usage, areas of usage. Is it, well?
Well, it is a game, so that's what we kind of have optimized the system for. But since we have modding tools, there is no limitation to what people can actually do with these assets and this game system. So it is quite open, and to this day, I don't think anyone has made an actual system that would use real-world data in the game, but someone could do something like this.
Have you been contacted by schools or architecture schools or lower grade schools or anything like that?
Yeah, but so far we have been so busy with just the game that we haven't been able to do that much of side projects, but we have an excellent traffic simulation that we only want to kind of apply to other things as well. So we do consulting and things like this. So if you need to simulate a city, you know who to talk to.
Okay. So you said that the city doesn't react to the water, but it reacts to other things if you build opticals in the roads or things like this.
Yeah. The whole kind of idea of the simulation is that when the player does something in the city, builds a new area, for example, the other parts of the city react to that. So people might move into the new area, so they try to travel there. And if the traffic system is not working as it should, like the roads are maybe too small, people might get stuck, and then they are naturally unhappy because they want to get to a new place and they can't.
What happens when they're not happy?
They might move out.
Okay.
That's the worst thing that can happen. So.
All right. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions for Karoliina. We have two people to start with.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
Looking at the future, is your focus on continued development of the game, or do you also consider expanding the tool set for modders to create more lifelike scenarios, like using real data from geographic information systems and such?
Well, we as a company want to concentrate mostly on games, so we are working on new content for Skylines and then starting with a new game project. But we are still working on opening the game even more, like creating more modding tools, asking the community what they actually want, because this is how we should do it. We don't always know what kind of things the modders would like to do, so we actually go and ask them, like, would you like us to open this part of the game, or might this be more useful? So we do work with the community and want to make the game more open so that it can be used by as many people as can, and to many different purposes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I guess my question or observations are similar in watching this. So fantastic game. I'm not a game player, but it's fantastic. So I was struck by the correlation between what you're doing and what the previous speaker was talking about. That if you go in the other direction, that you start off with a real city that's very problematic in terms of traffic or even pedestrian flow, and that the kind of goal of the game is to optimize and make more efficient. You're actually doing urban planning in a very fun way. And all you'd have to do, essentially, is the technology is almost there to do crowdsourcing, big data analytics, where you actually have a live version of a city that you can continually kind of investigate, put up new roads, take roads away, change the light configurations, et cetera. And you might even be able to provide more or less kind of optimal or more efficient solutions, which could be used to encourage urban planners to do the right thing. And is your company thinking about alternative business plans? Because this looks like a gold mine. It connects smart cities, urban planning, and games, which is what seems to be people are thinking about.
Well, we have lots of possibilities, and since we have kind of while this project aims towards having a fun game, the assets could be used in other way. So far, we are mainly interested in games, but we do consulting, so that the things that we have come up with for the game could be used in other systems too. So, and kind of the players are sort of doing what you described. So they create real life cities, and they make like traffic solutions for them. Of course, this is not completely accurate because the scale is a bit off from real world, but kind of if you were thinking like from my hometown, if we built a bridge over the center of the city, would it help with the traffic flow? You can kind of at least try how it looks and see how it affects the traffic, and that might give you an idea of what it would actually do in the real world.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking more like very scale to Hyderabad or Bangkok, where they have tremendous problems.
Yeah, yeah.
And they could save a lot of money just playing games.
Yeah.
Which is what politicians usually do anyways. So. Okay.
And of course, because the game is optimized so that it runs on low-end computers. So if we have like high-power computers, we could of course up the simulation and make sure that we can actually simulate more agents and all of this. So for purposes other than games, the same systems could be used with more realism in them.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question. Här, Åsa.
Hey, I would like to know about some details, what the rules about simulations come from. The real world, I hope. So what are the rules, and would you say something about if it's not a secret?
Mm-hmm. Well, the rules of the simulation, well, it is quite complex. But for the traffic system, we basically looked at how traffic planners work, how traffic actually flows, and kind of made a light version of that. So someone who is a traffic planner most likely has an easier time managing the traffic in the game than someone who doesn't know how traffic planning works. So most of the systems are based on real life, but then made as a more fun, light version that really fast gives feedback to the player.
Okay. Thank you very much, Karoliina.